Tara and I have been on the Tibetan Buddhist path for the past 30 years. And as we travel around the world, teaching people about the saints from different traditions, what we're trying to do is promote a universal spirituality. We feel that for too long, religions have been separating people rather than uniting them. And that it's very important to find the commonality, not focus on the differences, but to find the commonality. And really what we believe is that if everyone in the world practiced loving kindness, regardless of if they felt they were a Buddhist or a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim, if everyone in the world practiced loving kindness, we would transform this world into a heaven world. So we're very interested in knowing what you feel the connection is or correspondence is between the Tibetan Buddhist teachings and the I Am teachings.
That's a good question, and it really reflects on the fact that these teachings are eternal. There's really one universal truth that shows up from age to age in many different teachings and religions, and there's really no separation, just the outer form is separate. And as St. Augustine said, Christianity was around for thousands of years before the advent of the being we now call Jesus Christ, that he was a recent exponent of those teachings, that the light is within you, and the important thing is to learn to generate love and to see others as yourself, which is again the Advaita teachings of oneness, that we are really all one. See your neighbor as yourself, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is also the core of the Buddhist teachings. And Buddha himself was an example of that, and then also Padmasambhava, and then you have this Tibetan Tanka, which is the Lord Chenrezig, who is the embodiment of loving kindness and compassion. So again, the Tibetan Buddhists tend to talk in great detail about the different aspects of what we would call the Christ consciousness, or they would call your Buddha nature. You know, Buddha nature, Christ consciousness, are different aspects, really the same quality, which we're all here to learn. You can achieve that great oneness, but can you love your fellow beings? Can you be in a relationship, get along with others? So I think the really advanced Buddhists, as well as the Christians and the Taoists, and all realize that you know, in daily life is where we get the ultimate lessons in mastery.
Right.
So really, when you asked about the I Am, that Saint Germain is really working at this time to bring these ancient Tibetan Buddhist teachings into a modern form that everyone can understand.
Peter, I've always been fascinated by the painting of the I Am Presence. Is there a correlation between the painting you have here on your shelf and the philosophy of Tibetan Buddhism?
Okay, well, what Saint Germain is doing, that's a great question, because he's taking these ancient teachings and giving them in this modern form. So in Tibetan Buddhism, you have the concept of the three bodies, or the three kayas, the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and the Manakaya. The Nirmanakaya is the flesh form, or the physical form, physical consciousness. And then your soul body or higher mental body would be the Sambhogakaya, and then the Dharmakaya, or your God self, is the I Am presence, or the Atman. And this is hidden in the ancient Tankas, but modern artists are being inspired by Saint Germain to come out with these modern interpretations. And you have one of them here that shows the physical being sitting in meditation. Then you see the higher body. which would be what they call higher mental body. And then you see the yet higher body, or the God Self, that is an emanation from the I Am Presence, or an aspect of the I Am Presence. And these teachings are being revealed now by Saint Germain in a very simple, easy to understand form, so you don't need to know Sanskrit or Tibetan. You can just see the truth of them. And I have a much larger portrait in my shrine room that right next to a tanka that shows actually the three vehicles, or the three bodies, as they're portrayed in Tibetan Buddhism. If you'd like to see that, we could go in my shrine room.
Oh, that would be nice, yes.
Okay, follow me. So here we have a tanka of Padmasambhava. He's basically the Jesus of Tibet, a Christ being who also was born of a virgin, actually even beyond that, born in a lotus blossom in the middle of a lake, which is pretty miraculous, and brought Buddhism to Tibet. And he eventually ascended, went into his rainbow body. But in this tanka, they show his other kayas, his other bodies, just like the chart of the I Am Presence. So you have here the Amitabha Buddha, which would be the equivalent of the I Am Presence. The Amitabha Buddha is the Lord of infinite light. So all of us have our own Amitabha presence, which is the I Am Presence. And this is the great teaching of Saint Germain, that each of us is a God presence. And of course, that's also an ancient teaching from India and from many other cultures. Now, as an intermediary between Amitabha Buddha and the physical self, or the Dharmakaya and what would be called the Nirmanakaya, is the Sambhogakaya body, which is also called the higher mental body in esoteric teachings, or your like Christ self, or your light body, or your soul. So this is the body in which you go out at night when your physical body is asleep and do work in the spiritual world. And that is the body that is the rainbow bridge to your God presence. So it is through many, many lifetimes that we accumulate experience in the physical body, and also moving closer to the consciousness of the Christ, of the God Self, that we develop this intermediary body. So that body is the equivalent of what we would call the soul. And you see here also these other beings who would be the equivalent of what we would call ascended masters that are helping him in his work. You also see two of his consorts who were also manifestations of the Divine Mother, who came together to work in that lifetime by prearrangement, and it was recognized when they met that they had work to do together, and they carried on his teachings, and actually they taught him many things also. It was a mutual empowerment between the male aspect and the female aspect. Then you have a portrayal of 8 manifestations of his. These are peaceful and wrathful and many other variations, just as in the stories of Jesus you have a peaceful, loving, compassionate Jesus, and you also have the wrathful Jesus in the temple throwing out the money changers and scolding the scribes and Pharisees. And there are probably many other aspects of Jesus that we don't know about, but this is a portrayal of these 8 other aspects of how he manifested. And now Saint Germain has inspired artists to take the essence of this tanka from Tibetan Buddhism and manifest it in a much simplified form that's easier for us to relate to. So here you see a human self, and you see the enlightened mind portrayed by the halo, And you can also see the Christ self, the illumined heart there.
Peter, in the Buddhist tradition, mainly they're saying there is no God and there is no self. However, there are many deities that the practitioners are learning to connect with. Now, how do you relate this to the I Am school?
Well, I've had this discussion with many lamas, Tibetan lamas, and who say that there is no God. And then I say, well, you pray to Buddha, don't you? Who's that? Or you pray to Padmasambhava, or you pray to the Tara, and you say that these are all gods, right? But then you say there is no God. Isn't that a contradiction? And they can't really answer that. And also what they say is that the Dharmakaya, or what I call the I Am Presence, what St. Germain calls the I Am Presence, is a manifestation of divinity or God nature. So when the Buddhists say there is no God, they're talking about that picture of the old man on the roof of the Sistine Chapel with a white beard, and that they're saying that God does not exist, but there still is God nature. So each of us, what I call the higher self, or the Dharmakaya, is a fractal of the God nature or universal consciousness. So there's no God being sitting there in outer space directing the affairs of the universe, but there are many God beings, and each of us has a Dharmakaya body, or an I Am presence, that is the full manifestation of God. It's sort of like the acorn in the oak tree. The acorn contains the potential of everything the oak tree has, but it takes a lot of years of growth and receiving the right nutrition, water, sunlight to become an oak tree. So each of us, the human self down here is the little acorn, and through meditation, putting our attention on the light within, in our hearts, we eventually grow into our full divine nature. And the Tibetans call this attaining the rainbow body. In Tibetan, it's Jalus, Jalus, and there are many people have been witnessed attaining this, and this was a state attained by Jesus, as well as Padmasambhava and many, many other beings. It's sort of like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, that he said, if you should strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. So in this tanka over here, we have a portrayal of Padmasambhava, this being attaining the rainbow body. So here you have Padmasambhava ascending, or attaining the rainbow body, which he achieves not by leaving the physical body, but by bringing the light of his higher self, or his Dharmakaya, down into the physical form. And you see here the focus of light within the heart and within the mind center also. And he's basically dissolving the 5 aggregates, or the 5 components of physical material reality, so he can become one with his Dharmakaya body, or his eternal self. And then here again you have Chenrezig, which would be the action of compassion, and it's manifested here in the duality of Manjusri, the Lord of Wisdom, and he's wielding the sword of discriminating intelligence to cut through the knot of ignorance. It's not a violent thing, it's the action of cutting through the knot of ignorance. Then over here, Dorje Trollo, which is the aspect of crazy wisdom, or more the intuitive aspect of sudden insight into the true nature of reality. So he is manifesting both of those aspects as well. But this is a very beautiful portrayal of the ascension process, which is also shown again, in a more simplified form back here. Well, I'd like to mention, coming back to the I Am Presence, the significance of the violet transmuting flame. This was also a quality that Padmasambhava had, that instead of seeing things as good and evil, you should rather use every experience as something to be transmuted into its higher form. So he subdued the demons and turned them to the light through his love and compassion. So this quality of violet is the most purifying quality of the light. And through pouring out your love and forgiveness, forgiving yourself as well as others, you invoke the violet consuming flame, which transmutes everything into its higher form. So as you reach your Christ self and attain your own Buddha nature, then this quality of violet is automatically invoked that burns up and transmutes all of the dross. Now, some people want to know what these colors are. These are actually the qualities of light that you have gained from the experience of all of your previous lifetimes. So at the end of a lifetime, the goodness and the wisdom that you have attained becomes a permanent part of your God nature. So in a sense, God is growing and learning all the time and evolving into higher forms.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing this knowledge with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. It's been an opportunity for me also. So thank you.